you guys are having an awesome week. All right, we are continuing our topic of creativity, and that is imagining what you could do because you're made in God's image. Wow, that is so cool. You're made in God's image. I'm made in God's image. Everybody is made in God's image. All right, so when you're a kid, a lot of people ask this question: what do you want to be when you grow up? Go ahead and shout out your answer right now if you know. All right, so it's funny how adults ask kids that question all the time, because the truth of it is none of us know exactly what God plans for us in the future. We tend to forget that God can use us in big ways no matter what we grow up to be. All right, so today our story is from the book of Esther, and we're going to be talking about, you guessed it, Queen Esther. All right, so Esther's story is a great example of how God can work through us in unexpected ways. All right, so Esther lived about 400 years before Jesus was born. Esther was the queen of Persia, but she didn't become queen in the usual way. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So let's go ahead and back up. Her father wasn't a king. Nope, he wasn't a king. And Esther's family wasn't considered important in the kingdom. In fact, Esther was Jewish. Her family was among the Jewish people who had been captured and taken to Babylon, which was then captured by Persia. Sadly, Esther's parents died, so she was raised by her cousin Mordecai. Esther's story wasn't off to a great start, right? Her family was captured, her parents died, and she was raised by her cousin in a land that wasn't her home. But Mordecai raised Esther as his own daughter. We can imagine how he taught her the ancient scriptures and the ways of the Jewish people. During this time, a man named Xerxes came to power as the king of Persia. Xerxes was very powerful, but he also had a big temper. One day, he got angry. He fired his queen simply because she didn't show up for a wild party. Xerxes decided to hold a contest to find a new queen. Yes, you heard that right, a contest. The king ordered his officials to gather the most beautiful young women in the land and put them through an entire year of beauty treatments. Esther was one of the girls that they chose, and she won the contest. Xerxes chose Esther as his queen. Mordecai had told Esther not to tell anyone she was from a Jewish family, so she headed off to the palace with no one knowing about her Jewish heritage. Esther wasn't the only new person Xerxes brought in. He also promoted one of his royal officials, a man named Haman, to be second in command. Haman was not a nice guy, sadly. He was kind of like the playground bully. Haman was not a nice guy. Sadly, he was kind of like the playground bully, but with the power of an adult in charge. In fact, he ordered everyone to bow down to him. Everyone did exactly as they were told, except for Esther's cousin, Mordecai. When Haman discovered that Mordecai refused to bow down to him, he became super angry. In fact, Haman was so enraged that he made a plan to destroy not only Mordecai, but all the Jewish people in the land. He took the plan to King Xerxes, who agreed to it and sent out a decree. Just like that, messengers took a letter all over the kingdom to declare the news from the king. The news they delivered? On the 13th day of the 12th month, all the Jewish people were to be killed Whoa! When Mordecai and the others discovered the horrible news, they were very upset. Mordecai sent a message to Esther in the palace. He told her that she must ask King Xerxes to save their people. Esther was upset to hear the news, but she also knew that she would be risking her own life to approach King Xerxes. She wrote Mordecai a letter and reminded him that no one was allowed to approach the king unless the king had asked them to come. If Esther went to the king, she might die unless he reached out his golden scepter to her. A scepter was a special staff that showed the power of the king. But Mordecai knew there was a reason Esther had been made queen. Listen to what he wrote her in a letter as recorded in the book of Esther. And this is from Esther 4:14. What if you don't say anything at this time? Then help for the Jews will come from another place. Who knows? It's possible that you became queen for a time just like this. Esther knew that Mordecai was right. She told him to gather all the Jewish people and fast for 3 days. That means they didn't eat any food and they spent time in prayer. Esther and her attendants did the same thing. Esther prepared herself for what she had to do, risk her life, and approach the king. 3 days later, Esther put on her royal robes and entered the throne room. Would King Xerxes be pleased to see her? Okay, good news. King Xerxes was happy to see Esther. He reached out his golden scepter. In fact, the king told her that he would give her anything up to half of the kingdom. But Esther didn't make her request right away. She knew she would have a better chance of success if she made the king curious. She invited Xerxes and Haman to a feast. At the meal, Xerxes again tried to discover what Esther wanted. Esther held her ground, waiting for the perfect moment. She invited the king and Haman to come to another feast the next day. She told him then she'd give him an answer. Finally, at the meal, Esther told the king the truth about Haman's evil decree. He was going to kill all of her relatives and even her. She asked the king to spare her people. Xerxes was angry. He asked who dared do such a thing. Esther told him it was Haman, his second in command. The king burned with anger. That very night, Haman was killed, and King Xerxes created a new order that would save the Jewish people. Phew. God gave Esther a surprising position in a faraway nation, and when the time was right, she used all she was given to make a big difference. She used her creativity to save her people. God gave you special gifts too. He has a plan for your life, and you'll be able to discover more about it as you get older. Just like Esther was created for a very important job. And here is our bottom line for today. God created you for a purpose. He created me for a purpose. I can't wait for one to see what God has planned for all of you, and myself included. So, it's great to be here with you today, guys, and I hope that you have a great week discovering God's purpose for your